See if you can match the meanings. Break up, end up, go on, go back. And finish, continue, decompose, return. Well, break up means to decompose. Go back means to return. Go on means to continue, and end up means to finish. But notice that break up can sometimes mean finish as well. We can break up from school. In formal writing, we would be more likely to use words like continue or return than phrasal verbs, which tend to be less formal. Phrasal verbs are difficult to learn because there are so many of them. Look at go. We've already seen it with go back and go on, but there's many, many more. And remember, most of these have got more than one meaning. It takes a lot of time to get used to all the phrasal verbs and what they mean. You need to listen carefully to people speaking and the way they use phrasal verbs. Another important thing to do is to write them down in groups and buy a good phrasal verb dictionary. So pay attention to those phrasal verbs. Learning them in groups can be fun, and your spoken English will sound much more natural. Now we're going to look at some writing tips. For variety, it's important that you use a lot of different sentence types of different lengths. The difficult thing is finding the balance. You can join together short sentences using conjunctions, but what do you do with sentences that are too long? This sentence has many ideas, all joined together with and. How many ands are there in the sentence?
They break down the lignin and the cellulose, which is the most resistant form of carbon, and they break it down, produce mushrooms, and in turn you end up with organic matter going back into the soil, and so the carbon cycle in the forest goes on.
There are 4 ands. This sentence is too long and should be edited. The ideas can be broken down into smaller groups and shorter, clearer sentences. There are several ways of doing this. We can use punctuation, conjunctions, and connectors. So let's have a look. Here's the full sentence. We can start by using punctuation. Use a comma to separate clauses. Use full stops to separate complete ideas. And you can replace some of the ands with full stops. But remember, the new sentence must now start with a capital letter. Now we have a clear paragraph expressing a number of ideas with different kinds of sentences. And the carbon cycle goes on. But we can't go on. It's time to end this episode of Study English. But I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to Study English, IELTS Preparation. I'm Margot Politis. We're going to look at articles today, indefinite articles a and an, and the definite article the. But first, let's meet an oceanographer. She's talking about using underwater devices to predict weather patterns. See if you can hear her using articles while she talks about monsoons.
The monsoon gets a lot of its energy from the equatorial and subtropical Indian Oceans. Dr. Susan Widgefalls, an oceanographer from Australia's CSIRO, is hoping that by measuring the state of the Indian Ocean in those areas, scientists will be able to learn something about monsoon predictability.
Predicting the monsoon is a very difficult thing, and yet it impacts on millions and millions of people, and so we think that if we can predict the monsoon usefully, we could make a real difference. We know from El Niño that it's a fully global system, so you can't just study one small part of the ocean and solve these problems. You really need a global integrated observing system, and the Argo program is the first real big ocean attempt to do that, and it's the float technology that's allowed us to even think about doing this.
Using articles before nouns is one of the most difficult things about learning English. You can choose between indefinite articles, and an, the definite article, the, or no article at all. Let's start with the indefinite articles, and an. The rule is that is used before words starting with a consonant, and an is used before words starting with a vowel. So we have a banana, but an apple. There are a couple of exceptions to the rule. Where the consonant H is not pronounced, we use an. So we say a happy man, but an honest man. The H is not pronounced, so honest sounds like it starts with a vowel. And where the vowel U is pronounced y, we use a. So we say an umbrella, but a user, because user sounds like it begins with a Y. A and an are only used with singular nouns. We use some with plural nouns. The indefinite articles a or an are used to refer to indefinite things, things that aren't specific. You use them when you're referring to any member of a group of things. The indefinite article does not refer to a particular thing, but one out of many possible things. If I say, I would like a banana, I just want any banana, it doesn't matter which one. Let's look at an example of indefinite articles from the clip.
Predicting the monsoon is a very difficult thing, and yet it impacts on millions and millions of people, and so we think that if we can predict the monsoon usefully, we could make a real difference.
She uses the indefinite article twice. She says, predicting the monsoon is a very difficult thing. There are many things that are difficult to do, and predicting the monsoon is just one of them. Secondly, she says we can make a real difference. There are many differences that can be made in the world, but she is just talking about one of them. So when do we use the definite article the or the? Well, we use it when we're referring to definite, specific things. We also use the when we're talking about one particular member of a group. Luckily, there is only one form of the word the, and it can refer to both singular and plural nouns. We say the banana and the bananas. There is a difference in pronunciation though. When the comes before a vowel sound, we say the apples. So the before vowel sounds and the before consonant sounds. Let's look at the clip again. Listen for the.
You really need a global integrated observing system, and the Argo program is the first real big ocean attempt to do that, and it's the float technology that's allowed us to even think about doing this.
She says the Argo program. She uses the because there is only one Argo program. It's a unique particular thing. She also says the float technology. She is talking about that particular type of float technology, not just any float technology. There was a third the. She said the first real big ocean attempt. We use the in front of first, second and so on because they refer to something particular or unique. There can only be one first attempt. In the same way, we use the in front of superlatives, the best example, the biggest banana and so on, because there can only be one best or biggest of anything. Okay, so that's the major difference between definite and indefinite articles. But there are other rules as well. We use a and an with countable nouns. That is, if the noun can be counted. I ate an apple. Apples can be counted. We use the with uncountable nouns, with things that you can't count. I swam in the water. Water cannot be counted. I drank the milk. Milk cannot be counted. We also use a with counting expressions like a bottle of, a cup of, a bit of. Listen to this.
The monsoon gets a lot of its energy from the equatorial and subtropical Indian Ocean.
She says the monsoon gets a lot of its energy. Look at the monsoon and the Indian Ocean. These are both examples of other rules for the. We can use the to describe generic nouns. A generic noun is a noun that describes a category or type of thing. It can often be the same as using a plural noun. So sometimes the monsoon means the same as monsoons. She's talking about monsoons in general.
Predicting the monsoon is a very difficult thing, and yet it impacts on millions and millions of people, and so we think that if we can predict the monsoon usefully, we could make a real difference. We know from El Niño that it's a fully global system, so you can't just study one small part of the ocean and solve these problems.
And here's another rule. We use the with oceans, seas, rivers and deserts. We say the Indian Ocean, the Yangtze River, the Gobi Desert. We also use the for points on the globe, the equator, the Tropic of Capricorn, the North Pole. Choosing the right article can be very confusing, but if you follow the general rule that you use the definite article, to refer to a particular thing or things, and a and an, indefinite articles to refer to one of a number of things, you shouldn't go too wrong. Okay, so now we've seen how to use definite and indefinite articles. But sometimes we don't use articles at all before nouns. Let's look at when to use no article. We've already seen that you can leave the article out when talking about plural generic nouns. Monsoons are unpredictable. But this is true for other generic nouns too. Coffee is delicious. Happiness is hard to find. Balls are round. Okay, so let's look at some sentences. I would like a cake. I would like one cake, any cake. I would like the cake. I would like that particular cake. I like cakes. I like all cakes. Here, cakes with no article is generic. It refers to cakes in general, all cakes. Well, that's all for today. Don't forget to practice those articles, and I'll see you next time for Study English. Bye-bye.